Hello, my fellow Americans. I'm Bill Lipinski, and this is Two Guys on Politics. And the number one guy on politics in the state of Illinois is my friend Ray Hanania.
Well, in all honesty, Bill Lipinski is probably the smartest guy when it comes to politics in Illinois. I always defer to him. And being a journalist, I'm part of that wackadoodle industry that just can't seem to stay focused on what's important, Bill. I am Ray Hanania. This is Two Guys on Politics, Season 3, Episode 29. And here's the topics: cats and dogs. This is like a password episode. Cats and dogs, immigrants, the economy in an election, and hiding a head in a bag. Now, people who hear that must think, what the heck are you talking normally? What the heck are you talking about? That's the focus of our politics today. That's where American politics is gone. So the cats and dogs thing, what did you, that came up during the debate. Should I play his remarks?
Yes, first? I would like to hear it. Yes, I think.
All right, let's do that.
I'm surprised that you want to do that, because for a journalist, they don't usually want to be that accurate.
That's true. Why be accurate when you can lie and just tell people what to believe? Exactly. But let's see, we'll get this. We will be the opposite of that. Let's play this. Hold on one second.
What they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country, and it's a shame.
So this clip that I just played that we worked into our podcast, he says in Springfield, they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats. These people are coming in. He doesn't call them Haitians. He's talking about Springfield, Ohio. He doesn't refer to Haitians, but he's referring to these people that are coming in, meaning immigrants. So he made that claim. Kamala Harris, if you remember, was laughing when he made that statement.
Yes, I thought she was going to fall off the podium. She was laughing so hard about it, mocking him. Well, he also said at some point there that he saw it on TV or read it someplace that someone in
There were some reports.
Yeah, there were some reports on it. Well, you know, I find it difficult to believe that people eat cats and dogs, all right? But if you want to be honest about the situation, there are cultures in which cats and dogs are consumed by human beings.
Yes.
Rural China today, they still eat dogs. They breed dogs to a certain extent to be eaten. Some cultures consider it a delicacy. I don't really know that much about cats, but I know that dogs are considered that way. And if you roll back and look at what Americans once upon a time did eat a lot of horse meat. Now, on many occasions, they didn't know it was horse meat, but nevertheless, they ate it. There were no ill side effects to it. And some people got to enjoy it, and they would actually order horse meat. So before we get really upset about dogs, cats being eaten, we have to realize that in some cultures, people do consume dogs and cats, and we should make sure we look at it from that perspective. Now, the point that Trump was trying to make was that dogs and cats that were pets were being stolen by people, and those were being consumed by immigrants. Now, if that was the case, it seems to me that the immigrants who we continually hear are getting so many benefits from the federal government, and I believe that they are. What are they doing with that money that they're getting from the federal government that they have to be eating cats and dogs in this culture? Or is the Haitian culture one where they normally consume cats and dogs? I mean, the press should have done a much more thorough investigation into this, but it was Donald Trump who said it. So obviously he was wrong. He was a buffoon, And that's all they have said and done since that time is talk about how ridiculous what Trump had to say was, and talk about how Kamala, laughed and laughed and laughed. But once again, if we had a legit investigative media in this country, things might have turned out differently for Trump.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with a lot of that. I mean, all my life, I have heard of people eating cats and dogs in this country, and I'm a dog lover. It's not something that I would condone, obviously, but I have heard that. And I'm thinking that illegal immigrants, and that's an issue that we're going to talk a little bit about, are not the same as immigrants. Illegal immigrants are here illegally, and they supposedly don't have money. They sneak into the country. I don't know, do they go to McDonald's and order food with all the money they have? Although I've heard, you make a good point. Why would they eat cats and dogs when we're paying them something like $3,000 to $4,000 a month just to live here illegally? Now,
exactly.
I'm sure that they're, I just don't, I don't know. I think it's a legitimate issue. I think he was trying to make the point that's being missed, because the media doesn't want to talk about this, that illegal immigrants are a detriment to our society. And if it's not about eating cats and dogs, it's about driving without insurance, getting in accidents, running from the accidents. I suppose they're going to say, if he had said that, they'd say, oh, no, illegal immigrants don't get into accidents. They don't run away. They don't hit and run. But I happen to know people who have dealt with the illegal immigrant population on the borders. And they tell me the biggest problem with illegal immigrants is that they get in accidents and there's no accountability. They run, they flee. So I think he was trying to make an issue about the fact that these illegal immigrants are hurting our country. I don't think it's so much about eating cats and dogs, although I can believe that. And like you, I think the media is just pandering to this dislike of Trump. They will write and twist anything that he says into a negative. When he says they're stealing votes, suddenly in America, we've never had a vote stolen. Every election has been 100% perfect. Why, if that's the truth, why do we need election watchers? Why do we need the Justice Department to send people to elections, not just in Chicago, but all over the country, if votes aren't being stolen? So the idea that no votes are stolen, if Trump says it, they go, oh, no votes are stolen. They're eating cats and dogs. If Trump says it, oh, no, nobody's eating cats and dogs.
Well, I have never voted for Trump. I never will vote for Trump. I'm one of those people who never Trump, okay? But the news media in this country is totally and completely unfair to Trump.
Yes.
No matter what he says, no matter what he does, they manage to twist it into something very negative. For one reason or another, the news media in this country has decided that they will be a PR operation for the Democratic Party.
They're cheerleaders.
She still hasn't been submitted to a real interview, okay? There are still things that she talks about that have no details behind them whatsoever. I understand politics, but the news media should be pointing out those kind of things and not just praising her for one thing or another and emphasizing whatever good points she has, disregarding any negative things about her. And with Trump, they see no good points whatsoever. Now, if half the American people support Donald Trump for president of the United States, there has to be something worthwhile about this man. Okay,
right.
Now, he's never going to win me over, but he's won over an awful lot of other people, in spite of the fact that the news media continues to operate as a strong propaganda machine for the Democratic Party.
Yeah, the news media, they're just cheerleaders, and whatever he says suddenly becomes a lie. I was listening to MSNBC and I was listening to CNN. They go, oh, He makes up these lies. He makes up these stories. And I'm thinking, no, he doesn't. You guys are exaggerating it. You take an issue and you want to beat him up about it. You should explore it. I bet cats and dogs have been eaten. I do not believe people saying that, oh, no illegal immigrant has eaten a cat and dog. I find that hard to believe, because when you're desperate and when you're hungry, they do that in third world countries around the world where these people are coming from. So and it's absolutely true. It's sad, though, that that's the most important issue that has come out of that pathetic non-issue debate that Kamala Harris and Donald Trump had. She was declared the winner because she could control her. She didn't collapse. She didn't have Bidenitis. So it's just sad. But it also brings us to this issue of how issues are being twisted and distorted for political reasons, like the illegal immigrants and the issue of immigrants. Those are two separate individual categories. And the left keeps saying that when he attacks illegal immigrants, he's attacking immigrants who are a core part of this country. And I don't believe he's doing that. And I'm like you. I'm not a big Trump supporter. I don't support him. But the media is making this the topic. They're the ones that are lying, I think.
All that is doing, as far as I am concerned, is winning some people over to Trump because of the bias of the news media.
Yes.
And it is inflaming his longtime supporters with a zeal to make sure that they try to convert other people to support him and to make sure they get to the polls. And that many pollsters have said that this presidential election is going to be determined by turnout. Well, right now, I think that it is possible that there may be a larger Trump turnout than there will be for the Democratic ticket. Now, I know the Democratic ticket has been leading in a number of polls, and they may continue to lead up to Election Day. But unless those people that say they're going to vote Democratic come out, it's going to be just like it was when Trump won originally.
Yeah, between you and I was going to say between you and I, but in fact, it's not between you and I, it's the entire public. I was just in Dearborn, where the issue of, they had an Arab convention there. They moved their annual convention for ADC, which is the American Arab Anti-Discrimination Committee, a really good organization. They moved it from Washington, D.C. because they no longer see Washington, D.C. as being concerned with Arab and Muslim rights in this country. So they moved it to Dearborn. They had the convention there. They had about 1,000 Arab Americans and Muslim voters in the audience, and they were so pro Jill Stein. And I think, and it's not about whether Jill Stein is good or bad or going to be elected. It's about the Democrats are worried about that they are not going to get these voters to support Kamala Harris for many issues. So recently, they've been doing outreach. So I got an email today from the White House telling me that Joe Biden was upset at the way Senator John Kennedy treated a Muslim woman at a hearing on hate crimes. And I wrote back to the deputy press secretary who sent me the email. Wow. I said, I've been trying to reach out to you for 2 years and you haven't responded to me. Now, all of a sudden, I get an email from you telling me that Biden cares about the Arab and Muslim community. So that tells me they are very, very worried about what's going to happen, and that Kamala Harris is very vulnerable.
Well, do you think that she has really made any significant impact on the electorate since the debate? No. During the debate, she did, because a lot of people thought that Trump would be so much stronger than her. He would make her look weak, but that did not happen. Trump did not have a good debate. It certainly wasn't as bad as people said it was, but he didn't have a good debate. But I don't see where she's had any kind of real impact on the electorate since the debate. It's just that there are few people in this country, although there are some who are so supportive of the Democratic ticket. it's primarily because they're anti-Trump, is what it is. So unless
Right.
Harris starts making some positive impact with her own positions, I think it's going to be a closer and closer race all the time.
Yeah, and I think Trump has the edge because Kamala Harris hasn't proposed anything significant other than saying, I can stand up, I can answer the questions, and I won't be blustered by Donald Trump. Those are not achievements in my book in terms of running for president of the United States. And I think that what's missing from both sides, Trump and from Kamala Harris, is that neither of them have really defined how they're going to deal with the real issues that Americans care about. Now, I know abortion is a big issue, but abortion has been a big issue for 40 years or more. I think the bigger issue is the economy. And we saw this week that Joe Biden held a press conference to tout how much he's been doing to save the economy. He cut the interest rate down as a reflection of his good economy. And he said that he's dealing with an economy that was destroyed by his predecessor, and he's trying to correct it. Now, he's been doing that for 4 years. You can't blame today's economy on Donald Trump from 4 years ago. Yeah, I would blame it on COVID. I think COVID had a massive impact on the economy, but the economy today is horrible. And I don't see Biden or Kamala Harris doing anything to address the economy in a serious way. And I think that's a big problem.
Well, I think that, abortion is a significant issue, but no one's going to change their position on abortion.
I agree. I think you're right.
Kamala has not answered the question, where would she cut off abortions? She's been asked that question. She says, I'm going to answer that question. She never has answered that question. I don't know if she's for 9-month ban, 8-month ban, 7-month ban, 2-month ban. She hasn't said. She doesn't want to say. She's afraid to say. The border, she allegedly was supposed to be in charge of the border. We all know the border is a disaster. So many illegal aliens have come across that border. Now, maybe she couldn't have done anything about it because she was prevented from doing so by Biden and his staff. But she was stated to be the point person on the administration on the border. Those two issues are very important. But I believe the most important issue is the economy, as you say. It seems to me like every time I go to the grocery store, it costs me more money for the same items week after week after week. It seems to go up by, I'll get my bill and say 1 week I buy everything, it's $100. The next week I buy the same thing, exactly the same thing, it's $105. The next week, $110. I mean, it is incredible how expensive it is for food in this country at the present time. A country, that it is known produces so much food that we are continually selling it around the world and giving it to various charity organizations. How can we be so negatively impacted by the price of the food in this country, other than the inflation, which I believe was caused by the Biden administration when they first came into office, with all the money that they gave away for COVID. A lot of it, communities still have, they haven't spent it. And COVID has been, really subdued for quite a while. You would think the federal government would recall that money, but they haven't done so.
Right. Yeah. And I think if we had a real professional news media, they would be exploring that issue of rising food costs, because it's not just in the grocery store where we're seeing this surge in cost. Insurance companies have doubled and tripled their insurance rates. Gasoline, they say, is the lowest it's ever been. It's not low. I spend $4 a gallon and
Absolutely.
more to fill up, my car. It's costing a fortune. They keep saying things are better economically, but they're not better economically. And the idea that food is so costly only feeds into the concern I have that are illegal immigrants eating cats and dogs. If I can't afford to get the food I want, how are they going to afford to get the food they want? So I don't want to beat a dead dog, to death, no pun intended. But let's just one final comment about the Republicans, because honestly, some of those Republicans are nut jobs. This guy, Senator John Kennedy, is he? I think he's from Ohio, maybe. I don't know where.
He's from Louisiana.
Louisiana, you're absolutely right. He's a guy I've never heard of that's never come up with one interesting idea in his entire career, although he has gotten more than $1 million from foreign political action committees. He was at a hearing that was conducted by Senator Dick Durbin, a pretty reasonable, responsible senator, to address hate crimes. And there were two women that were there. One was the mother of the little boy, he was 6 years old, who last year in Plainfield was murdered by his landlord because the landlord was angry with the Middle East conflict. And he blamed the Arabs, so he killed the little boy and then attacked the mother. So the mother was at the hearing. And a woman who was representing the Arab American Institute, who is works with Jim Zogby, who I think you know. Jim is a pretty centrist, very strong Democrat. She testified that the racism and discrimination continues to increase in this country. But Senator John Kennedy, who's not related to the Kennedy family, said he didn't care about the rising racism or discrimination. He wanted to know, because she was an Arab and a Muslim, her name is Maya Berry, did she support Hamas? And she said no. And then he said, well, do you support Hezbollah? And she said no. And then he said, well, do you support the United Nations Relief and Works Agency? And she said no. And as a consequence, he then said something to the effect that you should hide your head in a bag. It was like a horrible, I don't even know what he meant by that. Hide your head in a bag. Was he referring to Muslim women because they covered their heads? My mom was Christian. She covered her head when she would go to church. Catholic, they do that. So his racist, really, I think his comments were driven by a racism that is a problem with the Republican Party.
No
and
question.
Trump didn't identify with it. But I know Biden and Kamala Harris are trying to jump on it to convince Arabs, you need to support us, but it's not going to be enough.
Why is it that the Arabs that have supported Democratic candidates for president in the past, this time around, will not be supporting the Democratic candidate for president, Ray? I mean, it's really quite a change around. And it's a significant part of the Democratic voting bloc that they apparently are not going to be with the Democrats this time.
Well, when you look at the Arab community, going back to when I was younger, they were Republican because they're conservative. They believe in family values. They believe in loyalty to this country. I mean, the legal immigrants who came here, they believe in religion, that their children should be allowed to practice their religion. And they don't support these sexual lifestyles that are outside of a marriage between a man and a woman. They're very, strong on that. And that was through Eisenhower, through Reagan. After Reagan, somehow they started shifting the Arab community to the Democratic Party to support Democrats. And I think it was as a response to discrimination and racism that was building up against Arabs and Muslims. So they became very strong Democrats. In this election, they're very upset with the Democrats, with Biden and Harris, for one very simple fact. Biden and Harris criticized Hamas as a terrorist organization, and I totally agree with them. But Biden and Harris will not criticize Benjamin Netanyahu for his violence in Gaza, which has killed 50,000 people and almost 22,000 women and children. So until they criticize Netanyahu, and they refuse to do that, the Arabs are not going to vote for him. They're going to vote for Jill Stein. The Democrats are going to lose those votes, and I think that's going to help Trump win.
Well, I
So,
think that it can very well help Trump win, and it is the fault of the Democrats. I believe that the Arab and the Muslim community feels that way about the Democratic Party at the present time, because the Democratic Party has also alienated a large portion of the Jewish American vote in this country,
yes,
because they
yes,
started out being totally, completely, blindly with Israel in this conflict in Gaza. As time has gone on, their position has softened more and more because, frankly, as I have said, and I have supported Israel all the time, I still do today, but the way they have conducted this war, they have caused too many civilian casualties. They have lost so much support around the world because of this. And the Biden administration has backed off from them. So they have a dilemma. They don't really have much support amongst the Arabs any longer, and not that much about the Jewish population either. And those were always two of their very strong groups of people within their coalition.
yeah, and it's interesting because it's not because I support Israel also. The Israeli society. I support them. I support the Palestinian society. What I don't support is a terrorist organization like Hamas and a government that acts like a terrorist organization. Israel needs a new government. So, but in today's politics, you can't criticize one side without being called whatever. So
Right.
it's listen, the real problem comes down to not having a strong leader. You need a father figure. When the kids go crazy, you need somebody to put their foot down. And Biden hasn't done that. And I don't believe Kamala Harris can do it. And I think Trump, for all his faults, is the tough father-like figure that's trying to address the issues, whether he does it right or wrong. We don't have a tough, strong government. And I think we're weak. And all this stuff is happening because we are not leading the moral way we always have. So.
Well, I think that there's a lot of truth in that. I don't agree with totally everything you had to say, but there's a lot of truth in that. It seems one of the biggest problems, Ray, I believe, is that the lack of interest at most times the American public has in what's going on with their government. Most
Right.
people in this country are quite well off. They have a good income. They live in a nice neighborhood, not much crime. They can bring their children up, send them to private school, parochial school, public school. They got a pretty good life. Consequently, many of them have abdicated their responsibility of citizens to know what is going on in their country, what issues are really important to their country. They're just not involved. It's like they don't care. Well, one of these days they're going to, and I'm afraid it's coming. One of these days it's going to wind up with one of these two parties, which are controlled primarily by the very strongest, ends of the party. And by that, I mean the most extreme ends are going to get
Yes.
power. They're going to control the House and the Senate and the White House, and they are going to pass legislation that an awful lot of American citizens are going to say, my God, how did this happen? My freedom here is curtailed. My freedom there is curtailed. Now I can't do this. But we're going to have no one to blame but ourselves because we don't have enough interest in what is going on.
I agree. I'm Ray Hanania.
I'm Bill Lipinski. I'm a fellow American. And to close the program today will be number one, Ray Hanania.
And we thank you for listening. And today we had kind of like a wide mix of topics, but we hope you enjoyed it and that we hit some principles that made you think about what's happening in the world. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll talk to you again.